they were really, really awful in the early game, but still found ways to kind of get back into it and still brought some pretty decent team fights. It was just terrible because they were so far behind. And so I see some potential there. And yeah, I guess, Godsent versus Fnatic, good start for Godsent, weren't able to snowball it. I would say, Godsent aren't exactly a bad team. I don't think KOVA run over them. But I still see potential here. Just have a bit of a better early game, and I think KOVA can pull it out.
We're getting a bloodbath. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. No. I mean, that was a statement. That was a statement right there. I mean, you would take it. I was about to say something coming completely unimportant, like we're into the draft phase, which everybody can clearly see. But yours was much more impactful. So why are we getting a bloodbath, Jabada?
I have got a feeling. I feel like KOVA, like Dan says, we've seen quite a few, explosive moments in team fights. They're just a little bit too far behind. And I think on the side of Godsent, I mean, actually, realistically, both of these teams, they've had a really tough start to the split. Both of them played Nordvind, one team's played Fnatic, the other team's played Galaxy Racer. So they've not really had much of an opportunity in a lot of their games to really shine through so far. So this is probably going to be that game to look at for them where it's like, okay, now we can finally try and start to get the momentum going. Because as soon as you do actually get that win, it just boosts the morale and the confidence of your team so much.
Ooh, the Ez first pick. Yeah, Ez is rising massively in priority now. And we even saw with your with your drawing board breakdown, Jamada, you saw how hard it is for you to get on top of Ez.
That's an outlandish pick right there. That is outlandish is a bit of an off-meta jungler, dude. He's an off-meta jungler.
If there is a champion that can get on top of Ezreal, especially at range, it might actually be Xin Zhao if he can land the Wind Becomes Lightning, the W, the big sweep thrust ability. So I have to keep our eyes on outlandish. But he's picking it ahead of champions that we've seen be sort of the premier picks in the jungle, like Udyr when the Rumble's gone. Even Morgana sometimes, Lear as well. Still Nocturne, etc. So let's see how he actually performs on it. I think Jinx as well into Ezreal, really good response, just because that Ezreal's not really going to threaten you in the lane. And I think, honestly, taking away Thresh just because the Jinx is there, whilst Ezreal Thresh might not be the most, synonymous duo that you will ever see, just taking it away and making Snummy have to kind of work on his positioning, make sure he doesn't just have the Thresh to back him up is pretty good here.
Something cool about Xin as well as a jungle pick is like you're obviously going for scaling if you've got a Jinx on your team, and it's good into Ez because Ez isn't going to pressure you, so yeah, you can get some free scaling there. But having a jungler like Xin who's able to put on some pressure early, it really does help bridge that gap and help you as a team to get to the point where Jinx can then get 3-4 items, so you don't really want to go full late game because then you just get run over early. So having a champion like Xin helps to kind of balance out the comp a bit.
Tiara's picked up his Rakan, though, something that we saw a lot from him last season. It was a pretty influential pick in his hands. He's a very heavy roam support, Tiara. He does like to be across the map as much as possible, and obviously Rakan, one of those picks that can definitely have impact that way. Looking like some junglers are being sort of cut down here. Would not be super upset to see a Udyr ban here either, but Lilia being taken off the board makes sense as well. There's the Wukong going, so we're going to see some, I guess, top lane kind of sort of taken away.
I would also like to say it might pay okay, they're going to remove away the Lucian. It may pay dividends to actually also remove away Nidalee in this situation as well, because you've already got Jace and also the Ezreal, and realistically Godsent don't have to draft that much more engage with this kind of composition that they're currently kind of gunning at. But I think Lucian just removing away just because they're expecting an AD mid and an AP jungle. It's totally respectable. And now for KOVA, I guess, trying to look at a pick that can try and match the Jace. Lee Sin still is up, but I don't know if they'll want to go for something like Lee in this kind of scenario. Technically blind, could be a bit too risky. So I would imagine it's going to be a Tatooine pick, but something a little more safe maybe than not is what they lean on here.
Yeah. I think you still need some front line if you are going to play with this Jinx kind of front to back. I wouldn't be surprised to see something like that going in the top side. So yeah, there's a sound safe blind pick for that. Karma's still made its way through this whole draft, by the way, and Karma's, we've seen a lot of focus on her as well. I still think Karma even in solo lane is decent, and especially if you can play around some hyper carries. But yeah, it's now on Godsent to pick that more AP, most likely going to be that AP style jungler, because they are very heavy in the physical damage department here, and AP junglers are kind of Udyr has Phoenix stance. I'll give myself 30% points for that one.
I mean,
There's the AP mid instead.
Yeah, I mean, I think honestly, you bring up a good point. Something like Karma or just utility champion. We saw the Orianna hover. They're obviously thinking about control mage more than likely out of mid, or at the very least just AP. And I mean, Silas been hovered more than once in it. With the timer ticking, unless they make a last second snap, I wouldn't be too against this pick. I think there's a couple of strong ultimates here to steal away, and it is going to have to make KOVA think on their R5 properly. They can't just lock in something that's going to give Silas a super oppressive ultimate to use on top of what Godsent are kind of running with at the moment.
So I think Orianna also makes a lot of sense at this point for KOVA, but I do think Silas does fairly well into Orianna, so maybe that's like something they're just bearing in mind. That is shocking, but okay, I'm here for it. We got Vlad mid lane, let's go.
That's wild. Vladimir mid, haven't seen that in a while, and also it's a pretty good ultimate to give out to Silas. However, yeah, it's there. A lot of late game scaling for KOVA. That is the one worry though. It is a lot of scaling for this team. They do need to get to a point in the game where, I mean, I wouldn't have been bothered by like Victor or Orianna, like you said, because at least it gives you like consistent wave clear and you can kind of like stall things out. But Victor, I mean, this is just all in with the Vladimir. This is just like, okay, well, when we get to team fights, when we get to late game, it works. Might not work for like 25, 30 minutes though.
Yeah. It does surprise me a bit, honestly. I thought they'd go. It kind of goes against what it looked like they were setting up for their team comp to do. But you do now on like a plus side, you have like way more of a threat that isn't just the Jinx, right? Vladimir scales really hard. It's loads of damage. I admit I'm not really familiar with the Vlad into Silas matchup, but Vladimir as a champion, part of the reason you don't see him that much is because his early lane phase is really he won't have priority. He never has priority in like any lane, so I'm not expecting to see that. It might be a little bit hard for junglers to play that.
Well, I mean, they've brought out something wacky, Foxy, and so they do kind of need to make it work for your prediction to come true. We have kind of been cursed by when the single caster goes against the grain, the single caster's big brain just explodes and gets the win here. So we'll see. Maybe that's the case. Hip Brain and Orcs, hand it over to them.
To be honest with you, Xcandrel, I just think Trouble's pretty good at predictions. I don't think that's going to be a particular trend we're going to see outside of just her. Let's focus a little bit more on this game here, Orcs. So we've seen a Vladimir in the mid lane. It's been a long, long time. And I mean, you're playing into a Silas. Like, he is quite happy to take a Hemo Plague. What do you think of this lane?
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't think Silas is going to provide like an insane amount of pressure to Simply. There are matchups where Vlad is going to hate his existence in the early game. The problem is he's not going to have priority, as Foxtrot said. And that's really important for this composition. You have a Jin Zhao, and like if you look at how this game's going to go, Udyr just outpaces Jin Zhao in terms of clear. And if Jin Zhao can't influence the map, he's not really getting value out of the pick. Mid lane, I mean, other than potentially looking for a gank on a 610, what really can you do? Because you don't have the assistance of Simply. Top lane is you have a Sion who's obviously a tank, and then in the bot lane, you know, obviously Jinx is going to scale well, but into Ezreal Thresh, it's such a safe lane. It's so hard to pressure. I don't think Vladimir was the pick here. I do like some aspects of it in the fact that it's scaling and it takes pressure of Snurmy being like this solo late game carry. But I think you really needed priority to make this composition work, because right now, unless Outlandish has the game of his life, it's kind of just KOVA taking the back seat. And I feel like with the tools Godsent have, they should be winning this well before that becomes relevant.
Yeah, that kind of seems to be the way the meta has been for the last 2 weeks of the NLC, especially, where the team that plays the kind of more early aggressive team, the team that looks to snowball, typically is able to pull that snowball off. And, you know, scaling tools are great. You've got the Jinx, you've got the Vladimir. If this does get to kind of, you know, 30 minutes plus, I do think Godsent are, you know, if they're not massively far ahead and are in an equal position, they're going to have a rough game. But realistically, I don't see Godsent coming into like a 30-minute state of this game in an equal position. So it's going to really be on KOVA to make sure they weather the storm, but not giving too much over. And for Godsent, I want to see them be really proactive on this map.
The thing is as well is that, like, for me, Jinx isn't as good as she was a few patches ago. There was a point where she was kind of like taking over the game. She had a bunch of nerfs since then. Her base armor has dropped. We also saw like there was a bug fix for the damage on her rockets. So they're doing more crit damage than they should. So she's not as strong as she was before. And even then, like, you want to have some of that early pressure. They are finding an engaged bot though.
Yeah, they got that level advantage, and Zvene is going to lose a fair amount of health, but is able to survive, has got the pots and the biscuits to chug and drink on, so...
You can maintain that pressure, that early momentum. It's definitely going to go a long way. Because, I mean, I've said this a lot of times about KOVA, is that for me, the best part of their roster has been their bot lane in terms of performance in spring. And if you're putting, you know, the eggs into a basket, that is a good one to rely on.
Oh, what was that hook? It's normally you have to flash.
They're the needle, and, you know, I'm just saying how it's a good thing. KOVA find an advantage in bot lane. Jinx is now flashless, so... Not the start you wanted exactly. As you can see in the mid lane, it's what we expected. There's that priority, and looks like we're gonna get a replay. Yeah, so just threads the needle through the gap. The minion goes down, and I've seen some suspect hooks in my time. I don't think that was a suspect one. I think that was just well laned by Svene there.
Yeah,
I've definitely seen ones which are, yeah, I've seen ones where I'm like, especially with Nautilus, I'm like,
yeah,
bro, really? But that was just some good play. And again, in that flash from Snurmy means if KOVA's bot lane continue just to pressure further down, they're going to need support from their jungler to make that work because they are vulnerable to potential ganks. But we've seen already, you look at the jungle matchup, Aesthetic is pulling ahead, just faster clear, actually able to steal away a camp from Outlandish on the Raptors there. And in the top lane, Tati's just zoned out in this matchup. So things looking really favorable on the top side of the map for the side of Godsent.
Aesthetic is also in the pocket of Kubi, although it does look like Aesthetic is just going for the reset. Probably going to want to just get back onto the map and keep farming, and he's got a pretty significant lead over Outlandish right now. Outlandish not got any camps spawning up other than this Krugs, and Aesthetic just going to start to work his way upwards through his own jungle as these minions start to respawn. So nice position to be in for the Udyr. Kind of got his pick of the litter, and he may be looking for a little something here in the bot lane as lands the hook on Tiara. Tiara jumps in and goes straight back out over the traps. The lantern.
Oh my lord.
Onto the traps. Aesthetic. That was not the play. And Svene blows the flash for it.
That was painful. That was painful to see. I want a replay of that, honestly, if we can get one.
The worst thing is Aesthetic turned around to get on the lantern. He walked back.
Oh, Lord. Let's take a look.
Give it in slow-mo. Give it in slow-mo. We want to revel in this. Look, he walks back. Oh, God. My assumption is I think he thought the traps were going to time out sooner.
I mean, yeah, there's that. Also, I feel like because it's a relatively recent addition that the traps stop dashes, you don't really think too much about it. Especially when you're playing a champion like Udyr. May not be something you're factoring in necessarily, but I will say my critique there is that Svene engaged that very early. I don't think he necessarily needed to go so early when Aesthetic wasn't really in range, so maybe pulled the gun a bit too soon, but ultimately definitely a missed execution there. A
bit too trigger happy to punish Snormy, who had no flash. That's kind of the takeaway from this. But at the end of the day, sure, it cost them their supports flash. It's not the end of the world. They didn't burn anything else there. Aesthetic's going to be able to pick up this dragon. So Godsent will be looking around that kind of 21-minute mark for the soul if they can continue to stack these dragons. And, you know, we talked about their kind of priority they're going to have and the power they're going to have. I'm assuming they're probably going to get the next couple of dragons at the least.
You would think. And it's kind of difficult to see a window when KOVA are like, okay, we're ready to fight. Because obviously when Jinx and Vladimir, both of them really strong on like 3 items, that's a good spot to be in. That's so far away. And it's really hard to know what state the game is going to be at that point. If you're substantially behind, then, you know, that advantage may not be as relevant. And so I think, like any team, even if you are a team who's looking to scale, looking to play for late in the game, you can't just sit back. You can't just give over the early mid game to Godsent because they will take it and run with it. And I think so far we haven't seen too much from Outlandish. Hasn't been very many windows where he's been able to make something happen. So I'm really watching to see if the Xin Zhao can find a little bit of momentum. Potentially, this Jace could be an option. You have the ultimate from Tatui for the setup. And obviously the Jace, outside of his flash, doesn't have any mobility to escape with.
Extend is going to eat the little bit of damage out from Simply. He's going to be able to collect in on this wave. He's got himself a pretty significant CS lead if you factor in the wave that's just about to crash into his face. So he's feeling pretty good versus Simply right now. There's a very small gold lead starting to amount here for Godsent. 1 minute 30 left in the game. 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 1 minute 30 l
then honestly, it could be worse. You know, they've had complete priority mid lane, priority top lane, bot lane. They had a potential to punish Snurmy without the flash. Snurmy's flash is about to come up again, and you know, yes, they have an 800 gold lead, but that's not really substantial considering how much more could be done.
Yeah, absolutely. Tiara looking to see if he can make a little play happen in the mid lane. It's just going to sneak through out of vision, so they don't know he's there. As the invade's coming in, Svene's also coming over as well. The Blast Cone will provide Svenic an escape, and it's just straight onto the Herald here. See if KOVA are going to contest this. Outlandish and Tiara are in the area, but you can see Kubu and 610 get first move into the river. They've also rotated Yusa over as well, so I don't think KOVA are going to want to try and contest this one. The hook is going to zone Outlandish away momentarily. The 610 steals away the quickness. Tiara doesn't have his own ultimate to work with. The teleports are coming in, and Godsent are about to get engaged onto. That's going to be the secure already, as here comes Simply. The True Shot Barrage cuts through everyone. First Blood has been secured for Snormy. A 610 able to jump away to safety, though. Godsent lose their support, but pick up that Rift Herald.
Yeah, I mean, all in all, that was fine from KOVA. They commit a lot there, and they bring the TP as well, but getting a kill, definitely not to be complained about. I think ultimately Godsent not really expecting a fight actually to come out. They had moved the members up, but they were more focused on getting the Herald and getting away. But you look at the outcome of that, TP's now been burned for Tatsuri, and if you look at the CS difference to the top lane, he's missed a massive amount in that scenario. And I think here you can see the engage comes in, and Godsent just aren't even interested in the fight. I mean, the initial impact, the kill onto Svene obviously turns things in KOVA's favor, but you could see very much that Godsent weren't interested in trying to fight that one out.
Not at all. A large wave is going to get collected as well by Yusa in the bot lane. I'm going to see where they place this Rift Herald down. I'd like to see them funnel gold into that Ezreal. Like you're saying, those two items are a really big spike for the Ez. Try and get that gold going as quick as possible. Closing in on that Divine Sundra for Yusa as well. That would be a nice one. You can see that Aesthetic's also in the area. We'll see where they decide to go, though, with it.
I think you have options. I mean, typically mid tends to be a good spot to throw it down, but you're against the Vladimir. I'm not actually that concerned about your inability to take mid tower. So I think you can kind of be a little bit freer with the choice. A good timing would be to wait till Dragon is closing on the spawn before throwing it down, just to apply that pressure. Yeah. You can pick that one up. I think by all means, when you're against a comp with a Vladimir and a Jinx, you want to be securing those dragons early and threatening that soul, especially when you look at it, it's going to be either a mountain or an infernal, both of which definitely help to curb the scaling a little bit.
It's funny to see your thoughts on the Rift Herald usage versus what Gulborg was saying. Gulborg is very much in the clan of people who think that maybe you should just go for AD carries picking up the Rift Herald. I think in that particular scenario wasn't really the time to be able to do that, just due to the fact that there was a fight breaking out, so they couldn't just make sure that Yusa picks it up. Herald is going to get summoned in the mid lane, though. They're going to just put that gold onto 610. Charges can come out. Plates are going to get shared. Tower's going to get chunked. And it looks like the Dragon, maybe a point of contention here, as KOVA are in the area. 610 has stolen away a Hemo Plague. So it has got a bit more sustain with that and the Kingslayer.
Oh, yeah, so Vlad just reset. Looks like he's going to potentially TP in for this one. There could be a bit of engage here from Tatsuri. He is looking for it.
Yeah, the charge is coming down. Svene may just be caught out. No, he's able to jump away. The flay's off. The True Shot Barrage is there. The Dragon is secured by KOVA, but Tatooine is able to flash away to safety. The knock-up is on as Svenic will lose his life. KOVA are actually winning these team fights back-to-back. Godsent are forced away, and they lose the Dragon.
Yeah, I mean, they just get absolutely wiped with. It's just the engage comes out from KOVA. They have the AoE damage, and it feels like Godsent still don't want to contest this one. They end up losing the Dragon there, but they get crushed in the following fight with Aesthetic and 610 both going down. Looks like they're going to apply some more pressure mid. I like the setup there from Godsent. They used the Herald mid. They got the two plates. They forced KOVA to respect it a bit, but I just don't think they were really in position to care for this engage. I think Svene could have been in a much better position. He shouldn't be on the front line as a Thresh. He should be in a position to lantern out. And then here, they're just pumping so much damage into the Scion and remaining grouped. And you really cannot afford to do that against this composition, because that will give windows to KOVA to win this game far earlier than the scaling would indicate. If you're stacked together, it's an easy Hemo Plague, it's an easy Quickness, and an easy Super Mega Death Rocket.
A scary amount of AoE, actually, is Zeus is just going to look to reset, decide not to go for it. Does probably have that money, or very close to it for the Divine Sunderer. Stormy has to be a little bit careful here. That ward in the area. Stormy has to be a little bit worried because they're going to jump out. This time the traps are not going to get caught and the flay lands. That's a kill. They're going to make sure Yusa picks it up as well. One last Q to score the shutdown. That is the first kill for Godsent.
Yeah, I mean, it was a good play, though. I like the patience there, and I like the fact that Svene walked up and flayed, didn't try to be cocky by going for the kind of fog of war. Shut down Snurmy, probably going to get a plate here and getting a lot of needed gold onto Yusa because you want to be hitting those power spikes as soon as possible. The fact that Snurmy is ahead in gold isn't ideal when you want to be hitting your biggest spike on Ezreal. Now, maybe you can get out of this one with a lantern.
Yusa takes it into the quickness. They knew it was there. They're both knocked up, and Yusa is just going to be caught out as Outlandish uses the Crescent Slate. Yusa, windows become lightning, and his life will fade. They simply will take him out with a proto belt.
Yeah, just a little bit over cocky. You push up to the tower, and I think they expected, oh, we're playing Lantern, we'll be fine. But they didn't have the vision to set up to do that, and Aesthetic had already left, so just far too overzealous. But Aesthetic is looking to potentially apply some pressure on the other side of the map. So still looking to be proactive, and this tower has already taken a fair bit of damage.
That's a charge out by Tatooine, so he may just have to give up a bunch of plates here. They won't take the tower with that wave, but they're able to at least pick up that last plate before the tower goes down. And actually, now the plates have fallen off. There's a good chance they can take this tower. The second wave is almost here. And Tatooine doesn't really have the wave to deal with. Does have pretty decent wave clear, though. It is a Scion, so
yeah, I don't think you can walk up on him. I don't think you can walk up there because he's obviously just going to be able to knock you up. And a lot of wave clear. That's why Scion is so good on the weak side. But all things considered, KOVA up in gold. They have these massive scaling aspects. Their team fighting's been excellent. It's like Godsent haven't really done anything with the early momentum.
It's going to be that Infernal Soul spawning up as well. Well, we're on the Infernal Soul map, but it's not Soul quite yet. We had 4 Infernal Souls yesterday, actually. So a lot of juicy games with extra damage. Ezreal always going to love that Soul. I mean, every champion's going to love that Soul, but Vladimir will.
Yeah, he's already one-shotting people. And I think the reason we saw a big rise from Vladimir is we had those buffs to his Q cooldown. But, you know, they got reverted to an extent. Like 60% of the buff got reverted. And he kind of fell out of the meta a fair bit. But the reason he was strong wasn't just because of those buffs. It's the itemization at the moment. The fact that you can stack so much more ability haste than you used to. And, like, Cosmic Drive is such a good item for Vladimir. And the fact that, like, Protobelt gives Magic Pen and obviously the Protobelt active is just... The itemization suits him so well. The problem is, obviously, we've seen a pretty fast-paced meta, so you don't often get to the point where Vladimir can come online. This game has been pretty slow, so it's looking like a solid pick so far in this matchup.
And it's kind of harks back to what we were talking about at the beginning, was we were kind of saying, you know, if this game goes even for like 30 minutes, KOVA are probably in a position where they can take over the game, and they've got the tools, they've got the champions to do so. And when Tiara is able to dodge away on both the Abscon and the Took, it's going to be pretty impactful. Snormi gets chunked out pretty heavily there, just by Kubu's empowered Shock Blast through the acceleration gate. They are looking to try and finish off this tower, but the wave is cleared out by Snormi with the rockets. Dragon spawning in 8 seconds time, and Godsent not really set up for it. They've got a couple of wards here and there, but KOVA are able to just clear those out. And I actually think that Godsent may just look to give this up and trade it for that Rift Herald.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of this, in all honesty. I feel like the Rift Herald is going to help you sort of equalize that goal difference, maybe give a bit of advantage. They are taking top tower as well, so it's nice obviously having that gold, but realistically, now your soul is just so out there in terms of a win condition. The earliest Godsent can have a soul is 31 minutes, and by that time it's just too late in the game, so I think there might be a window really for KOVA to just take control of this one. I don't think the Herald is enough of an advantage for Godsent to completely forego soul as a win con.
It looks like KOVA can get some free time on this tower. Snormi able to chip away a bit with the Gatling gun, and I actually just don't think Yusa's going to have the wave clear to handle it. Trying to chunk Tiara out as he uses the true shot to clear the wave. The exhaust is down. Tiara gets the grand entrance, and there's the zap, there's the charm, there's the rocket, and there goes Yusa. It's 2 quick kills for KOVA, making short work of Godsent's bot lane.
I mean, I was sitting there like, okay, it's a 1-for-1 tower trade, and then you have the Herald, so at least you can claim an advantage in that. And then Yusa and Sveni just stand up in the face of KOVA's bot lane. And it's like, you're not defending that tower. There's just no way you can do that. And then they just end up dying as well. And it's just such an absolute disaster for the side of Godsent. You don't have Dragon Soul as a win condition. You're now down in gold. This Jinx is mega strong. It's just really not looking good so far.
It is pretty problematic, if I'm going to be honest.
And it's a worrying start to the split, because I know this split has more games, so there's more of a chance to come back. But there's only 3 spots per group to make it into playoffs. And if you're finishing, you know, this week and you're last, you're behind everyone, you're not in a good spot, especially when, you know, you're going to be down in the head-to-head initially against KOVA. And it's just, you need to be finding this win against the weaker teams in your group. Otherwise, things are just looking so disastrous for your playoff chances. And bear in mind, there's still relegations as well. Yeah. Game's definitely not over, but Godsent need to start making something happen. Yusa has picked up that Divine Sundra, but we've already got 2 items on Sturmy with the Rapid Fire and the Kraken Slayer.
Well, this is, yeah, because this is the problem is Ezreal, you know, Manamine is actually quite a cheap item. But Stormy already finishing up 2 items himself and kind of keeping pace with the Ezreal. Really, really serious problem for the side of Godsent. Snormy's also got a level over Yusa as well. 4-1 on the Jinx, a really good performance for him. The Vladimir's gone unpunished. You can see the gold differences. There's a 1,000 gold lead between 610 and Simply. Bot lane is 1,200, or sorry, yeah, 1,200 gold between Snormy and Yusa. You know, the only lane that is currently ahead is the top lane, which is KOVA.
Which you don't care about at all. You know, for the side of KOVA, of course, you're just like, whatever. Chewie hasn't died. We're fine with that. And oh my. Yeah, I mean, at this point, really, it's looking rough. I think 2-item spike, that's your last window. That is your last window for Godsent trying to find momentum in this game, because past that, it's not getting better. Simply has picked up the Cosmic Drive, which is, you know, you give him movement speed and ability haste to a Vladimir. You can't ask for anything better. That item is made for him.
And health. It gives health too. It's actually the perfect item for a Vladimir.
It's so good. It's honestly, because we used to have like that meta where people would go like, you know, Protobelt into Rabadons on Vladimir, or sometimes even like Rabadon's first item. And it's like, having a ton of AP is nice, sure, but I swear Vladimir is so broken with more cooldown reduction and like mobility. And like, you look at the items he has so far, one of them gives him a dash and a movement speed boost. One of them just gives him flat movement speed, and they just give a ton of ability haste. It's so broken. And at this point, you know, you've got your Q max, you've got your E max. That is really starting to come online.
I'd like to see what KOVA's next move is, because we know what Godsent need to do. They don't
have to do anything, Jake. they don't have to do anything.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
I think they'll probably look to contest this dragon, because they've been so good in team fights so far. There's no reason not to. But realistically, if they don't, they can just give this dragon up if they really wanted to. I don't think they will. I don't think they should. But if they see a scenario where they're like, you know, maybe a good shock blast lands on a Sturmy, they're like, maybe this isn't great, they can just give it up. I think the window where they throw this game is if Godsent take a fight at dragon, manage to win it, and then translate that into the Baron. That is how they come back, and that's what we need to see.
But we've just seen Yusa now finally finished up that Mirror Manor. It's fully stacked as well. But there's now a Last Whisper on Snormy. Sure, there's not too many tanks, but you're kind of getting closer towards your next item. Hook comes on from Sene into Tiara. The True Shot Barrage cuts through a couple of members. Snormy untouched, the same for Simply. Simply kind of trying to play off in the fog of war, off in the darkness away from the side of Godsent. As the dragons are already spawned up, and it looks like it's just going to get started up here. Godsent, I think the best thing they can hope for is just take tower. Yeah, I think they just have to take tower.
All right. I mean, I guess it's third dragon, not fourth, but it's not looking good. It's not looking good for Godsent, all things considered. I guess they're trying to find a bit more poke and a better angle. They have got control of the Baron vision, but I don't think KOVA really... You can't start Baron on blue side against this composition. If you're all stuck in the pit, you're just going to get pentakilled by Vlad. So, I mean, you can see it. They're just backed off. They're like, cool, we got Baron vision, and now we piece it.
It's really sad for Godsent. They just... Had a
And it's
rough
crazy
bot
that
lane
we're 400 gold apart, right? 400
Yeah.
gold apart, and just because Godsent weren't able to make anything of their early game comp advantage, it just feels like they're. I mean, they're obviously still playing, but it feels like it's just like rolling over and just letting KOVA have what they want.
And this is perfect. You're about kind of 8 minutes off that soft timer. I kind of feel like that time has been pushed forward a little bit, just due to the fact that the Jinx is pretty fed. Got the Cosmic Drive and the Rocket Belt finished up onto Simply. I'm assuming next item's, just looking at the items, probably just going to be a Zonya's Hourglass. Could also go for the Void Staff. Fairly cheap item as well, but I assume it'll probably just be...
There's not enough MR on the other side. Like, really, the only person who's built even a shed of MR is Aesthetic. And you're not really hitting the Udyr anyway, so...
He's stacking a lot of armor as well anyway at the moment.
Yeah.
Oh, there
I
you
feel
go,
like
144.
I feel like maybe the play for Godsent is wait for KOVA to get complacent and start Baron themselves, and then throw in a couple of Shock Blasts, maybe an Ezreal ult, chunk someone out, and then look for the fight. But KOVA playing this correctly. They're not hunting for fights. You see some teams who they're constantly trying to force no matter what. It's actually something I was really critical of Resolve doing. Was just that they were constantly fishing for a fight when they had no need to. So I'm glad to see KOVA haven't done that. They know that they win this if this game keeps going on, and they're just kind of playing it slow. And now I think Godsent are realizing they have to do something, because inactivity is not going to win this game. And they're just starting the Baron, which a little bit risky there. And with KOVA being very aware, they can definitely just turn this one around.
They're coming in, actually, looking for the charge. Just going to stop 610. And Tatooine burns ult. That's all it really cost KOVA to stop the dragon.
It's like, I like that they start it and they're ready to disengage. They know it's a rough one to be caught there, but it's like, what are you actually getting from that? You know, you got the Scion ult, which is not that big of a deal, and that's about it. It's like, they played it correctly, but they're not really actually getting anything from these plays. It just kind of feels like they're fishing a bit. But they don't have any bait on the rods, so KOVA just aren't biting.
Suiting KOVA right now. The gold lead, like you said, it's marginal. The towers are exactly the same, but we're getting closer and closer to the point where KOVA will just be able to run them over.
And the problem is, with that dragon in a minute 45, that's where things get really scary. Because now, you know, if KOVA secure the dragon, that's such a massive spike for this team. It's so insane, honestly. But if Godsent secure it, I mean, it's like, you know, Ezreal's getting like 15 AD. If that. It's really, really one-sided, and that's the problem with like letting a team stack dragons, because it gets to the point where you're contesting them, and even like if you manage to secure the dragon, it's not that big of a deal. Like with things like Baron, with Elder Dragon, like, you know, if the smite messes up from one side, the other side gets a benefit. But here, you're not getting a massive amount of power for winning the smite fight. And based on how the team fight's been going, if Godsent overcommit on the dragon and manage to secure it, there's a good chance KOVA just wipe the floor with them.
I'm really glad to see as well a team kind of handling the Ezreal, because we've seen the Ezreal quite a lot over the last the last day in the NLC, and it's proven to be a really, really strong pick, a pick that a lot of teams haven't really been able to handle, but just picked up, be able to blow it up with your Rakan Jinx, and that's done some wonders here. Tatooine is going to jump into Yusa's face. Normally takes a shock blast as here comes Simply onto the flank. Tiara's going to jump over the wall with the quickness. They do get the interrupt off into Simply for the moment, but KOVA already taking this team fight. Snormy zoned out, but he will find himself the kill. He is excited, and Yusa running away. The zap goes wide, but the flashes come in, and Yusa will lose his life. A double kill for Snormy as Aesthetic slowed down by the zap, and the rockets will continue to bounce. They have to flash away. They can't deal with any more excited Jinxes. And KOVA just absolutely walk through the team fight.
I mean, it looked so one-sided, and this is what happens. You draft this sort of level of team fight from KOVA, and you don't get contested in the early game, and it's just clean sailing. Infernal Soul now in pocket. We have a 6-1 Jinx. Gonna have a 3-item Vladimir, I expect, after this base. And realistically, they can probably just head over to Dragon and just start it up. I really don't think there's too much concern coming out from Godsent on this one. They can't even approach to land a poke. That's the thing. The second they get close, you know the engage is potentially going to come down from KOVA, and they just win in a landslide now with the advantages on their carries, and critically that Infernal Soul offering so much extra damage. This would be like a resolve level throw if Godsent were to win from here.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, KOVA can probably at this point just go do the Baron. It's going to bait Godsent into a fight that Godsent probably aren't particularly ready for. True Shot Barrage doesn't really do much but strip away a little bit of the shield from Tiara. Shot Blast does a fair amount of damage to Snormy, but it's not the end of the world as the Snormy just answers back as the quickness is used, and they are going to find an easy kill onto the Jace. Teleport's coming in, and that is going to be one dead Silent. Pop him away with a Crescent Slash, and it's a double kill gifted to Snormy.
It's easy as that. I mean, you just have Chara, instantly start a pick. So easy with the Rakan. You got that extra mobility and using the Shreddies as well. Yeah, one pick, 610 TP's and save the teammate goes down as well. And that's just Baron. Nothing else really to say about it. This is looking pretty dominant. It was a slow-paced game, in all honesty, but KOVA knew their win con, and I just like the patience, because as you said, they could have just started the Baron up there, but they opted not to. They respect Godsent's threat, the poke they have. Instead, they get this really easy pick, and then it's just so sad. Obviously, you can't cancel TP anymore, not for a while, and you just get caught out now. Simply seems actually fine here.
Oh my lord, Zvene just gets popped. Simply's doing so much damage. They're looking down for the moment, but Simply gets the Empower Transfusion, and Yusa's health bar is evaporating to Snormy. Here comes the charges. He clears the wall, run over. Tatooine squashes Yusa. Oh, poor guy. And now Aesthetic slowed down.
Nice geometry from Tatooine, and I mean, yeah, Chara's just gonna find him.
Not too much he's going to be able to do there as Outlandish almost gets taken out. Snormy has to be quite careful this. Stopwatch is using Outlandish, gets himself one. They've got a shutdown. Snormy's doing damage. 610's just going to use the stopwatch, and there's a Zap to seal the deal. The ace for KOVA. And that should probably be the base to follow as well. They've got Baron, they've got Soul, and Godsent just don't have the damage, don't have the ability to deal with the scaling now.
I mean, yeah, honestly though, I'll say KOVA are playing these fights really well.
Yeah.
Snormy smithing on that one, and the coordination coming out from Tati just to clean up Yusa there, but the gold lead is insurmountable at this point. 7,000 with the Infernal Soul and the Baron, and they're just going to look to end here.
The tower will crumble. Godsent will be spawning up, but it won't be quick enough as down goes the Nexus. 30 minutes on the clock, and KOVA will take out Godsent.
Pretty solid win, and
yeah,
you know, there's definitely some questions. How reliable would this composition be against some of the other stronger teams? But I think you kind of see the strength of this KOVA lineup, that when they come to those team fights, they are strong. And we saw that in spring. We saw them going up against the stronger rosters, even the academies, and holding out in those team fights despite gold deficits. The early game is still a bit of concern, but when you go up against a team like Godsent, who haven't been able to really have that momentum for them, it ends up just being their first win of the split.
And it was a very convincing win as well. They didn't really look challenged. We thought they'd be challenged early. We said they just had to hold on in the early game. And honestly, they just completely ran away with it. A fantastic win there for the side of KOVA. A much needed win as well. But for now, it's time for us to take a break. Time to pay some bills. So we'll see you in a moment.